this beginning couple slides are gonna be very similar to the ones yesterday, so bear with me. But in case there's different people here, I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement, which we always start with. The University of Minnesota Morris is located on land that has been cared for and called home by the Dakota people and later the Ojibwa people and other Native peoples from time immemorial. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm tribal sovereignty and express respect for Native peoples and nations. So once again, some background. I'm from the University of Minnesota Morris. We are a small residential public liberal arts college, and we were founded in 1960. We have a unique campus history. The land that we are on had been a Native American, two Native American boarding schools, and then after that, they were a West Central School of Agriculture for high school students. And so kind of a unique campus history that plays into a lot of what we do and how we do it. We have about 1,000 students. They're all undergraduates. So we have a very small student body. We're pretty small, which does allow for a lot of one-on-one engagement in ways that may not be possible if we were a larger institution. A really important point, 33.6% of our students are Native American. Because we do offer a Native American tuition waiver for any Native Americans in the country. And so that plays a lot into the types of materials that we collect and some of the voices that we really want to make more known. We're in rural West Central Minnesota, and we have a huge environmental sustainability focus as well. So all of those things play a role in what kinds of things we're doing. I always tie things back to our mission and vision. This collection is really easy to tie back to our mission and vision because our administrators are all about student engagement and student success. That's all they care about right now for the most part is, are students succeeding? How are we helping retain students? Those kinds of things. And I think that we can really point to some of these scholarly collections as well as archival collections that students are creating to show how we are connecting with students and really helping retain them at our institution and helping them thrive in an academic nature. So our repository is called the Digital Well. We hold a lot of different types of materials. So we have your traditional faculty research, and a lot of archival materials. I talked about oral histories yesterday, but we also include minutes from like our Morris Campus Student Association. That's our student government, and then we have a student scholarship collection, which is mostly what I'm going to talk about today. One of the highlights for our student materials is Scholarly Horizons. It's our undergraduate research journal, and we've been publishing it since 2014. I know a lot of folks also have undergraduate research journals. This is really special for us because it's a way to interact with all of the disciplines on campus. We get all types of works, so we don't really say, oh, you just can submit research papers. All we take is research papers here. We have had music. So this Trio for Strings was published a couple journals ago. We've had photos of artwork included in this. We have had podcasts. We have had played music, so actually like a performance piece by a student. And so this is a way for us to really get the breadth and of all of the different types of materials and types of works that are being done on a liberal arts campus. And it also helps allow for publication for the humanities. For some of our other collections, it's got a very strong science and math focus because a lot of those students are the ones who are doing research with faculty and they're publishing and they're doing those kinds of things. A lot of our art students kind of don't get some of those opportunities because that the work that they are creating is not necessarily the things people usually think about submitting to an institutional repository. So we've been working really hard to work with faculty in particular to get them to submit this type of material and say, this is welcome here. We want to include these types of works. So that's how our journal does work. All of the inclusions for this journal are submitted by faculty members, and we accept everything that they submit because we tell them you can only submit the best works that you have had, and we limit it to, they can each submit 2 a semester. And so this helps because I don't have to be an expert in that field, because I couldn't tell you for the math papers that we get if it's a good work or not. So the faculty members get to decide that. And then we use this also as a great learning opportunity for our students because over the years I found they have to submit a form where they sign their rights that they have the right to the material, that they have copyright permissions for the images in their work, and they always just sign it and turn it in, and then I open up their article and it's like 40 images from copyrighted journals. And so we use this as a really great opportunity for students to learn about the publishing process, about some of these things that clearly they don't know. So I work a lot with students on copyright permissions, how to go through that process, how to remove that image and put in a better, like a public domain image instead. And so it allows students, especially students who are hoping to go into graduate school, learn some of those skills ahead of time before they kind of move on to the process. A lot of our students actually do go to graduate school, and so this is really important. We've also started really working with folks about the accessibility piece because it is the expectation for our repository that we probably are going to have to be in compliance. Our general counsel has not been as nice as some of y'all's general counsels. And so, like this, our most recent version of Scholarly Horizons, which will be published next week, hopefully, I have been working with students and saying, okay, here's what alt text is. Here's how you do it. Please do that for the 50 photos in your piece. And that's been really helpful because the first times I've talked about accessibility stuff, they're like, I don't even know what alt text is. And so they're also gaining those skills, which if they go into the public sector, they're going to have to learn some of those things because so much stuff is going to have to be in compliance with that law. So we're really proud of this collection. It gets a lot of views, and I think that it really helps us engage with some of those high-achieving students. We also have an undergraduate research symposium. That symposium began on campus in 2001, and it's kind of a traditional research symposium. They do presentations, they do posters, sometimes they do performances, and we try to collect all of those materials in our digital well. So this grouping is all self-archived. They're not required to submit their materials to be included in the undergraduate research symposium, which has led to some challenges getting folks to actually submit their stuff. When they apply to be in the URS, they check mark a box of like, yes, I'm interested in being added in the digital well, but then no one follows through and like actually sends us the files. That's been a real challenge. So we're working on some new pathways to get them to submit. We're kind of hoping to maybe move to using the events feature in Digital Commons so that they're actually having to submit their stuff before the symposium. And so we're going to see how that works. And then we have other traditional, we have honors theses, we have senior seminars and capstones, we have student research papers and creative works. So we have like your traditional kinds of materials. The one that I think is really interesting is our student research papers and creative works. Students can self-archive mostly anything. So we don't have a lot of guidelines in terms of what they can or can't submit, other than that we tell them, this will be public, this will be available to everyone, do you want that to be the case? And so we've gotten really interesting stuff. A student self-published a book, This Eating with the Seasons, Anishinaabe, Great Lakes region, by Derek Nicholas, and that's gotten some of the most downloads in our whole digital collection because it's really, really popular. It's a cookbook using Anishinaabe cooking. So the students come up with some really interesting things, and they submit them, and then they're able to share them with the world. And so the biggest challenge with this has been getting students to actually like know about these collections and that they can submit there. And so we have been working with student groups, social media, to try to kind of get the word out that this is something that you can do if you have something that you're really proud of, but it's not a senior capstone and it wasn't your honors thesis, but you're really proud of it and you want to have it grow or have other people use that research, you can submit it here. So then finally, I want to talk about our archives projects that are student-led, because I think this is an area where we've really grown and it's been kind of unique. So we have a lot of student-led archival projects that end up in our institutional repository. I talked about oral history projects yesterday. So some of those are funded through grants, some of them are institutional funding, some of them are through classwork. But we also have students who just are interested in oral histories and have just been going out and doing their own projects. And it's not connected to a class necessarily, and it hasn't been connected to any funding, but they're just passionate about the topic. And then they have come to us saying, I want people to hear these. I want people to know about these. And we've been able to archive them. So we had a student who did a LGBTQIA2S plus oral histories in Morris, talking to both university folks and then town folks about their experiences as LGBT people in our community. And it was an amazing project. They did a really wonderful job. And now we're able to host these, and that student can have a lasting legacy on campus. And that's how we've been kind of framing it to students of like, this material will get used, this material will get shared, and you will have made a difference on our campus and maybe in the world. We also had a student who wanted to do a podcast with faculty and staff. It was like, get to know your future faculty and staff. And they just did this on their own. And they did, I think, 10 episodes of a podcast. And now we're going to be adding that. That one is not added yet, but it's in the works. And then we've had students who have just said, I want to digitize stuff. And I want to make it available. We had a student from the Saddle Club who came to us and said, why don't you have any of your Saddle Club stuff in the archives available online? And it's like, well, we don't have the time to do that. And he's like, well, I'll do that. So he spent 2 semesters digitizing all of our archival materials on the Saddle Club, creating all the metadata, and then I uploaded it, and now we have a lovely Saddle Club archival collection in our institutional repository. Similarly, we had a student who is interested in the founding of our institution. He went through all of our materials and digitized and created metadata for documents kind of related to the founding of UMM Morris in 1960. That student we were able to find some funding from the administration for because they were kind of interested in that project. And now those materials are available online. And then finally, we have this GWSS program at Morris that stands for Gender, Woman, and Sexuality Studies. This is the same student who did the LGBTQIA2S plus oral histories. They are very active on our campus. So they did a project with a faculty member where they did a history and a timeline of that program. They wrote up a whole paper about the history and found tons of archival materials and digitized them, and then also did oral histories on the founding of that program. And so now they're putting all of that together. It's going to be its own collection in our archive of all of these pieces. Okay, and then I forgot I had one more. We had a student who was really interested in Dakota, Lakota, and Ojibwa language. And so they spent a semester with the Sustainability Office where they created original photographs and, original images and descriptions of the months in Dakota, Lakota, and Ojibwa with explanations of what that so like, for example, November is Deer Antler Shedding Moon month, and like talking about what that means and what the meaning of those kinds of things. And they came to us looking for a home for the project. They're like, we want this to be available online. We want this to be available to everyone. How do we do that? And so we were able to add this to our collection. They have posters around campus where they have the images and a QR code that leads to the institutional repository so folks can find that online. So lots of projects. So the takeaways from this is that working with students and working on the projects that they're interested in really meets the mission and vision of our institution. Our administration is often asking us how we're helping with the student experience, how we're helping with retention, and we can point to these experiences to say that we're really helping students with their academic goals, we're helping students with their interests, like in terms of like the club interests, and we're also helping students who are headed to graduate school learn some of those skills that they're going to need when they move on. We've had a mix of library and archives directed projects and then student directed projects. So the biggest thing has been letting folks know we're willing to help you if you have an idea. So we've been getting a lot of students who come to us and say, I have this idea, how do we make it work? And we have been really willing to work with folks, even if sometimes it seems like, that's a big project. I don't know that we'll be able to have the time to help with that. We have actually made some really large projects work just by kind of working through some of those logistics. It's an opportunity to teach students about copyright, accessibility, metadata, and it's allowed for us to do a lot of hands-on mentorships of students and relationship building. So a lot of these students that I've talked about, I have very good relationships with. I keep track of them even now as they're off to graduate school and onwards to careers. And we make these like one-on-one connections that really help retain students. We've had lots of engagement in our institutional repository. Scholarly Horizons is one of our top downloads. Every month, that's one of the top things that is being downloaded. And so a lot of this material is actually being used by the world. And then finally, I find Digital Commons to be a really excellent platform for this because of its ability to allow for native streaming, image collections, documents. You can kind of use all of those things. It allows for a lot of flexibility for us. That if people come with like kind of a strange project or a weird file type, we can say, yes, we can include that. It's got a relatively easy interface for students to upload their own content. Obviously the support staff is amazing and they've been able to talk me through like, how do I make this work? We have this new collection, but we want it to work this way. How can you do that? And then the students can easily share their work with their friends, family, and their graduate schools so they can get in. So yeah, we're yes people here, which sometimes is challenging because I am the only person doing this work at my institution, plus a lot of other things. And so sometimes that's one of the hardest parts is that there are so many great projects that we could do. How do we prioritize what to do? But lately we have been prioritizing some of these student projects because we've seen really good outcomes for those students. And so we know that these are making a difference for our undergraduates.